Okay.
Call to order the May meeting of the Ann Arbor Downtown Development. Susan, would you please call the roll?
I would. Tom Crawford.
Here.
Bob Gunsville.
Here.
Roger Hewitt.
Here.
Lee Clough. Here. Phil Moonstein.
Here.
Al McWilliams.
Here.
John Moa.
Here.
Lucian Ryan.
Yo.
Keith Orr.
Here.
Sandy Smith.
Here.
John Split.
Here.
Phil Weiss.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. First on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Reports from city boards and commissions. Lee Decker.
Last night, many current developments in downtown Ann Arbor, and there are a lot of them, were at least touched upon as we discussed two major efforts for change being made in relationship to area transportation issues and also the future of the library block. CAC members and guests appreciate a thorough discussion by Susan Pollack of transportation changes planned for Ann Arbor and the four-county area of Southeast Michigan. Southeast Michigan Transit authorities hope for connecting Ann Arbor and Detroit via commuter rail as well as bus rapid transit services along certain corridors is to us very impressive. As ex-executive director of the Ann Arbor's Downtown Development Authority, Susan has full grasp of our local AATA, Get Downtown program, and DDA parking transportation demand management options. As a member also of the Regional Transit Authority's Citizens Advisory Committee, she has a significant role to play in shaping the Regional Transit Master Plan that is expected to be adopted this year. Susan explained that the RTA is planning to ask voters in Washtenaw, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties to approve a new regional transit tax this year. If the tax is approved, the RTA will move forward with services now being planned. The State Citizens Advisory Council, of course, strongly supports these local and regional efforts. We also discussed last night issues regarding the proposed Ann Arbor connector and the pros and cons of locations for our future railroad station. I should say stations. Alan Haber was also at the meeting last night. Alan, as you know, is an advocate of a park on the library lot. We had him speak to us. He asked to speak to us on that issue. And everyone last night had a chance to express opinions. The result, the downtown area CAC will continue to support our stated position. We support mixed-use development of the library lot with the 12,000 square foot public plaza, planned connectivity to the library, the Lake Transit Center, the former YMCA site, the Allen Creek Greenway, and Liberty Plaza via the First Martin properties. Last week, some of you may have been there, at a public meeting organized by the Core Development Group, which is handling the library lot, we heard criticism of the current proposal. Many people said it was too large for the site, too overwhelming. The public plaza would not be run by the city, people argued, and it would be difficult to really use it. And the entire area should be dedicated, some people felt, to public use. The Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council remains committed to working to make the future development at the library lot site as good as it possibly can be. The core group is willing to make changes, any changes, supported by the city government, whether in height, design, use, affordability, recognizing that the amount paid for the site might change based upon the need to make the project work financially. So we can discuss it. Let's see what we can do with it in terms of the possibilities. And we look forward to those future discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Next, communications from DDA members. Sandy.
So I am the representative for the Allen Creek Greenway Citizens Advisory Committee. We had our first meeting just this morning. There's a Citizens Advisory Committee, there's a technical committee. The technical committee is all city staff. We have, the meetings are pretty far spaced apart with a lot of the technical work happening in between. So there's going to be a citywide public meeting June 16th everything's gonna happen in the council chambers. So June 16th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And then we won't meet again, and there's like 22 of us, so it's a pretty big group. We won't meet again until September 14th, and that's at 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. This morning we went through kind of ground rules and an overview of the wealth of information that's already out there about this. There's dozens of documents and city documents, plans that address this in some way, shape, or form. So and certainly the DDA has a good chunk of those things. We talked about the street framework plan as part of that, the North Main Vision Task Force was part of that. So all of these documents together, we're going to be looking at where the intersection is, and then we talked a little bit about who the users were. It's about how much we got through today. Really defining the users as 8 to 80. So we have to look at it. It's probably not a commuter spot because there's so many stops and starts, and it's going to be probably a slower paced trail. It's not. We can't compare it to the High Line. We can't compare it to the border trail. But something that connects the downtown, the neighborhoods through to the river. So that's really step one. You can go to all the documents, all the discussion, everything is available at the a2gov.org / Allen Creek Greenway. And if you're up in the middle of the night and want some stimulating reading, I suggest you go there because there's lots of it there.
Thank you. Anyone else on the board? Should report that as a DDA member on the Connector Management Committee. The Connector Management Committee is now meeting on a monthly basis now that the project is moving forward. The April meeting, we discussed what needed to be done to complete the alternatives analysis phase, which essentially virtually complete, and we expect that at the May meeting to finalize that and be ready to issue the alternatives analysis report. This is the second step in the process to qualify for federal funding. The first was the feasibility study, which was completed, 3-4 years ago. So this should be completed in May, and then the next step will be the environmental impact study and preliminary engineering that we anticipate will probably start sometime in the summer or early fall, and that will be a 2-year process. There have been a number of stakeholder presentations similar to what we saw here. I and the consultants have presented both to the State Street Area Association and also to Oxford Properties, and we were doing the Main Street Area Association this Thursday. So I'll keep people posted. Are there any questions? Okay. Okay. Susan, Executive Director of Communications.
So I want to begin by thanking DDA member Marie Clough, who gave up perhaps the prettiest morning that we've had so far this spring to serve on a jury that was vetting about 160 pieces of our work. I know it's a blur to you because there were so many. In collaboration with the Arts Alliance, the DDA is working to put public art into the public realm. Our dollars are matched with state dollars, and there's some private fundraising effort underway. And there is still opportunities for members of the public to get their thoughts heard about which artwork they like. The jury selected 13 pieces. I have my own personal favorites among them. But there's still opportunities for the public to weigh in on 4 more of those boxes. So if people go to a3arts.org /public vote, or vote in person at the Michigan Theater or at the District Library, you can weigh in on 4 more selections. And voting will end on the 18th. So thanks to Marie for helping us to get to this point, and now we're looking to the public to help us finish the selection. Another thing to report is you will see our work, DDA, in partnership with the city and with the Main Street Biz over the next several weeks. We are working together to replace the trees that died in the winter of 2015 along 4th Avenue and Washington Street. It's a true partnership where the DDA and the city are contributing the dollars to buy the trees, and the city's installing them, and the biz is taking on a commitment to water them and keep them maintained. So we're excited to see that. That may very well be the way that we keep the trees in downtown flourishing, and I'm very excited about the partnership. And then the last item I have at your seat, just sort of a sketch of where we are in discussions around the off-hours taxi stands. As you may remember, there was a request to use the loading zones after 6 for taxi purposes. A committee of DDA and city staff recommended that that number be reduced to about 2 dozen. The signs and so forth were installed. That was not met with universal acclaim in the community, and the council approved a resolution in March asking the DDA to come back with a game plan. So what you have in front of you is sort of where we are with our working game plan. I met with the taxi board. This committee has met again a couple times. The recommendation at this point is that the signage be changed from taxi to loading, unloading, as we have in other sections of downtown after 6. And then the secondary thing is to reduce the number. And the taxi board will look at the taxi stands that we have and reduce down to what they think they ultimately need. But I wanted to put out into the public realm an idea that I heard that I'll bring up with ops to get some guidance on, which was that at least some of them be designated, not to go back to general parking, but they be designated after 6 for motorcycle-only parking. As was explained to me, motorcycles are incredibly beautiful and yet tempting to nuisance behavior. When this meeting took place with the citizen, they explained that a police officer's motorcycle had just been knocked over because somebody climbed on and was doing the room, and pointed to that, saying that's why motorcyclists want a public space right out in front. So I thought that was actually a very compelling question, and whether or not it's seasonal as we do with bikes or whether it's year round, I think it's a really interesting question about putting some designated motorcycle parking in the curb area. And some of these locations that would be given back from the taxis might be the right place to put it. So these are just a collection of ideas at this point. The Ops Committee will have this on their agenda. But everybody's feedback is really welcome. And then we'll get back to council with a game plan. That's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Okay, now subcommittee reports. First, Operations Committee, Don Split and Keith Orr. Oh, pardon me. Wait, I approve of minutes. I would entertain a motion to have the minutes of the April 2016. Support. Okay. Any discussion on approval of minutes? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Now, subcommittee reports. Operations.
Beginning in your packet on page 13, there is a resolution which I would like to move.
Your support.
This resolution is pertaining to contract for our yearly parking structure repairs. At the committee meeting, our staff and Carl Walker, members of Carl Walker Inc., employees of, met with us to sort of explain how we go about choosing, determining what parking structure repairs we're going to make this coming year, and also procedures that are followed to put out bids and choose which bid we are going to go with. They explained these things to the committee. The committee approved the way things were done, and they've always been done. We asked for them to review with us how those procedures work. So the low bid was DC Buyers Company, and you will see that that was for $4,703,000. There is also some money in this resolution for a signage package at Ann Ashley, which I believe is approximately $200,000, as well as a 20% contingency, making the total number $850,000.
So you answered my one question. but then I made another question. So my question was, with the 20% contingency, how we got from 473 to 850, $200,000 worth of signage would answer that. Which brings my second question: $200,000 worth of signage? Question mark.
Yeah, we'll have Joe come up and explain the signage package.
They're really cool signs.
They laser sound.
After meeting with Carl Walker, engineer, about it, we gave that as the outside, the way outside price that it could be. And that if we hire the company that designs and manufactures and then hangs them fully, we may have Republic Parking hang the signs, or may do anything in between, but this is the maximum price that it can be.
It's a fully loaded cost, it's
Yes.
not just.
You might describe all the different signs.
I mean, if you go into a parking structure, there's, all the signs are on the wall, hanging, the wayfinding signs. This will be converted to our standard colors for floors. We'll also be naming the different entrances and exits for the streets, which they put you onto. So this is a way outside price.
Okay. And that came through Ops Committee?
We have not gone. There was just a discussion between myself and a Carl Walker engineer who's going to put it together, and then we'll bring it back to the Ops Committee when it's ready to be bid.
Okay.
So it will be reviewed further.
Additional question then.
All right.
This is more for the board. Does this need to go on this resolution then?
Well,
if it's separate and there's no number attached to it yet?
We're just making a total project budget for all the repairs that will be this summer.
Al, if I may, we talked about doing it that way. The sign package is definitely part of what we include in our repair package. And we are coming back to the committee with the sign package and details of the sign package, and we will be keeping an eye on that. So if that works, satisfactory.
Al, that got my attention too. That's a lot of money for signs.
Yeah, I mean, just as long as whatever that number ends up being finally comes back to some sort of review, that's fine.
It will.
All right.
Any further discussion about the resolution? Seeing none? Okay, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Resolution passes.
All right. Next, I would like to move the resolution on page 18, which is to select a consultant to conduct the parking operation review.
Your support John?
As most of you are aware, we have been going through a process, first with RFQ, RFP interviews, and selected Walker Parking to do for us this parking operations review. Again, Walker Parking, not to be confused with Car Walker Inc. They are two distinct companies. Walker will be asked to compile info about comparable municipal parking systems, including fees paid, and we'd also like Walker to help draft and distribute the parking operation RFP next year. As you know, our contract with Republic will be expiring next year, and we would like assistance in drafting both an RFP and helping us with that contract. So the amount is not to exceed $75,000, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Discussions? Questions? Okay. Seeing none? We'll vote. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Next, the monthly parking transportation report starts on page 19 and is on page 26. I will direct any questions anybody has to Joe Morehouse. quarter parking revenue usage reports, page 27, 28. Any questions about those, Joe or myself?
Just that the quarterly average of temperature was 9 degrees higher than the previous year. That's sad because it still wasn't very warm. Just saying. I don't know where you catalog that comment, but
Under climate change.
No, that's just weather. Pete,
Head over to me now.
I think you're up.
All right, so, we had a pretty good discussion at the, committee meeting on the Nelson Nygaard recommendations. There's a lot of work to go forward on it, because there were a lot of recommendations, some of which are in our direct purview, and some of which require work with the city. What we were talking about largely this month was the TDM efforts and some of the technology that would help support that. Actually, I noticed that here we even have maps in the packet somewhere, though it was not referenced at this point. Where are those? They're on pages, yeah, 24 and 25. Those two. So the first one on 24 shows the existing e-parks, and the second one shows proposed e-park, both blocks and lots. The installation of these is going to help a lot with transportation demand management, which was one of the big things coming out of the Nelson Nygaard, both the last time we did it as well as this time. One of the things, I guess, to emphasize about the Nelson Nygaard report is it is indeed about management of parking, and the e-parks will allow us a lot more flexibility as far as they go. We also, people who use the meters, even though there was certainly some initial, I don't understand these machines, as people have gotten to know them, now they actually look for the e-parks because they don't need to have their quarters and that sort of thing, or alternative ways of paying. Let's see. Let's see additional e-park machines. Sometime this fall, I guess, is when we're looking at it. We are doing in the Carytown area, I believe, a farmer's market area. We're doing looking at an alternative machine that would allow the interface to emulate the current interface. It wouldn't confuse people by having two entirely different ones, but there was a considerable difference in price, so it'd be interesting to see what happens with that.
hey, Keith, if I could just mention,
Yeah.
take this opportunity to mention that you can use an app on the ePark machines.
Yes.
It's called Pay by Phone. You just have to know the city code 4855, and it's my mission to raise that percentage of people that know from 2% to 3%. So,
You got your work cut out for you.
We will mention that at every committee meeting.
literally, that's what I'm
Or
doing.
every
Every time someone says ePark,
vast
did you know there's an
audience
app for that?
The vast audience watching will raise that by the 1%.
Yeah, probably not.
And let's see, I guess the only other thing, one of the specific areas called out in Nelson Nygaard was the Carytown area. So we are, I think, going to start off focusing there, since we are focusing in capital improvements as well. But it has a lot of unique characteristics given the farmers market. And we're just talking about loading zones. So there's a lot of interest in what we can do about loading zones during the farmers market that might help people be able to park a little further away, knowing that they can come by and pick up their those are the major things
So I
that
want
we
to
talked
second,
about.
Rishi's desire to get people to know about the app. I'm curious if we could put that on the DDA website.
Absolutely, yes.
So with Marie, we're going to go for 4%.
That's right, adding to it.
Well, let's
Along
not
the
get
city
crazy here. I set a reasonable goal of 3%. You're going and making it.
Well, you can always just sit in your car and pay, then get out and walk down and forget your number, and it just makes life easier.
Oh, I just take a picture of every single time. I just take a picture that I know what it is. Anyway,
There you go.
I'll have a whole tutorial on how I do it, but that'll be for
Very
another day.
good. And we'll link to it on this site.
Yeah, video.
Technology
Maybe
functions
not.
on.
Maybe
All
not.
right.
Is that it for you, Keith? Is that it for you and Rishi?
All right, Jim.
The only other thing we have to cover is the fourth and Williams construction. Our elevator has, our first elevator has at last arrived. It arrived on Monday. It will be installed over the next month or so. I'm still predicting that elevator will be operating by Art Fair. And then it will be time to tear down and construct the second elevator.
Thank you, John. Keith?
Our next operations committee meeting is Wednesday, May 25th at 11 a.m.
Thank you very much. Next, Finance Committee. Marie?
So if anybody had any questions about the quarterly financial statements, Joe is ready, willing, and able to answer them. And if not, I'll go to moving a resolution to segregate parking funds to enable the future construction of additions to the public parking system.
I'd like to second.
So this is really about, we all know there's been a lot of discussion about parking. We are bumping up against capacity on a regular basis. The Nelson Nygaard study, clearly indicated that we were in need of additional parking over the next 10 years. So one of the things, when you do additional parking, and they're very expensive, and they have to be bonded because of the cost, and that bonding requires a large percentage of the money as a down payment. So one of the things, as a planning, and as we're thinking about this, we wanted to identify this fund to begin to segregate some funding to act as that down payment in the future. And that's what this is about.
Discussion.
Okay, so I'll go ahead there. So one thing that I wanted to put out there was I felt like we probably should take this back a little bit and develop some plan for this in terms of just how we're coming up with the dollar amount and just a little more thought behind it. Not that I think it's a good idea to take this into account, but I feel like there just needs to be a little bit more of a like how we arrived at this decision. I'll leave it kind of a little bit more vague like that. So I think in that regard, I think we need to do a little more work on this resolution before it can be voted on.
Yeah, I support that. It seems very, certainly well intentioned, that it's in the right vein to go forward to do something like this. But I like to see projections, like through the 10-year plan, what it looks like, maybe modeling based on the last structure we built and take that into, tomorrow's dollars. Somebody who, I know the words, but somebody else can do the modeling, and kind of, and look at that and then maybe just, this feels like it's kind of a pegged amount. It's fine, a little more fine-tuned on that. Does that, feel like that operations or the finance can hone that a little bit more?
Okay.
And to second that, I guess doing that would allow it to have a goal, even if it is an amorphous goal at this point. I think it's good if we're setting aside large amounts of money that there be some sense of
think you can do some projections based on some historicals, but not knowing the nature of what the next lot would be or where it would be kind of hard to get you a lot further than this is getting you. So I sort of agree, but I don't know how much the projections are actually going to tell you, other than get it a little bit more specific than this. But
So maybe we just need to put a little more thought into it, a little more framework around what a plan is. I think this is, I think it's a critical thing that we do as a planning so that we're prepared. But maybe we take it back to committee, put a little bit more structure around it, and then bring it back to the table for additional consideration.
So just to clarify, and I guess I look at this as just a savings account saying, hey, we know we're going to need parking money in the future for something big. Let's start setting money aside for when that happens. So I almost think having it be more broad and less specific is a good thing, because we're not saying we need to hit X amount and then we need to do something with that amount, or future boards need to do something with that amount. It's just saying, hey, this is a need that we see in the future. Let's not overspend right now so that when that need comes up, we have resources, right?
I think that is noble. However, without a very clearly defined purpose for a pot of money, there are other entities and taxing authorities that would question why that is there, and then perhaps suggest alternative uses for that money outside of our control. So I don't think it's prudent without something that's very clearly defined.
Okay. And I mean, we may not indeed know what the parking structure is that we're going to be building, or even if that's ultimately the answer, that there may be some other thing in the future that we're doing. But I sort of think of it like you say, setting money aside because you're not going to use it. You may at some point decide you want to buy a house, and you may not know what that house is, but you start setting aside a budget of some sort. Say my goal is to set aside X amount every month or year or whatever, so that I can start looking for that house at a certain point. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like it needs some sort of framework that says, here's what our savings plan is.
I just want to make sure that everything's clear too, that this is looking at the Nelson Nygaard recommendations moving forward. So some of us have been around long enough to remember the last parking structure, which was prompted by Nelson Nygaard and looking at things, and sure enough, those projections worked. But moving forward, there's so many different ways that it could happen, locations and partnerships with other entities and developers and so forth. So it's hard to know how that might frame up. So I'm not sure how, I think we can document quite well a need that we project as needing to be satisfied, but it's going to be difficult to put a lot of specifics on it anytime soon. So, I just think we need to make sure that folks, outside this room also are kind of clear that what we're reacting to. We're reacting to what we've seen before as an increasing need and a projection, and the fact that to actually do a structure or do an infrastructure project like this takes a long time, 7-8 years, and that's really what we're trying to set ourselves up for, and the city.
One thing I kind of point out is that, so we have a 10-year plan, and what is going to happen in year 10 is we literally have no idea, but we have a 10-year plan, and we revise it every year. So in something like this, in my mind, it's no different than that. I mean, we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know who's going to jump to the table or whatever, but that doesn't mean we don't have a plan for it, an estimation at this point, and with an idea, just like with our 10-year plan, like, this is a very broad estimation 10 years down the line. We're obviously going to be revising it tomorrow, and then next year, and then next year. So I think the point is not what the numbers are, or what the dollar, or where it is. That is not immaterial. It is that we have developed thought behind it and a rubric, and then that rubric will change, or what the inputs will change year after year after year, and those will move. But I think developing that rubric is that transparency that we want to have. So that's my only thing. It doesn't matter to me what the numbers are, just that there's a framework.
I'm all in favor of the concept of segregating money for future parking needs because having gone through it before, it takes a long time to get that money saved up. Clearly, we don't know what we're going to build or when we're going to build it, and undoubtedly, whatever we think now isn't going to be true 5 years from now, or maybe even 3 years from now. The rate that downtown is changing. I would feel more comfortable, though, if we went back and ran some projections through the 10-year plan, not only for how much money we're going to need for a down payment, but also how much money we're going to need for funding the bonds that will need to be purchased to do this. And that's both a revenue in the future as well as what cash flow we're going to need between now and then. So, again, I'm all in favor of the resolution, but I'd be a lot more comfortable if we put it through finance to run the 10-year projection and come up with a number based on what we think, certainly what we spent in the past and what that would look like in the future, at least dollar-wise. John?
I would like to move that we postpone this to an indefinite time.
Move the table then?
Postpone.
Okay. Do your support?
Support.
Okay. All right. Move to postpone the resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Want some discussion?
Oh, that's discussion?
Technical, do you postpone to a specific date and table indefinitely?
No, my tabling is something that takes place within a single meeting. Postponing is for a definite time or for an indefinite time is my understanding.
Someone call Mr. Roberts.
Yeah. I can at least, go ahead. I can just tell you how council does it. If you table it, it's a date uncertain. If you postpone, you usually give a date, then you postpone it to.
So postpone it to a specific date.
If you have a date that you think is reasonable, I would recommend you just pick that date. You can always bring it back and say we're not quite done. But
So why don't we
Postpone until
the next meeting?
Next board meeting.
Is everybody comfortable?
One meeting.
Is finance comfortable that we will be able to do what the work that is being asked of us, or I believe is being asked of us, in one meeting?
It's a good show.
I heard a nod from Joe, so yes. Why don't we?
All right, so
I feel like we have a reasonable.
All right, so if I may, I will change my motion to our next meeting.
Okay. All right. All in favor of postponing this resolution until the June board meeting? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. It is postponed.
And the next finance committee meeting is Tuesday, May 24th at 1 p.m.
Very good. Thank you. John?
Thank you. At our April Capital Improvements Committee meeting, we were joined by our consultants from Smith Group JJR and their traffic engineer consultants, which was nice to see them starting to get hands-on involved with us a little bit. The meeting centered around an update on Southview, which was really finalizing design details, making sure we understood what we were getting. We got some heads up on some of the technical challenges and intersections and so forth. So I think we have quite an accurate idea of what the design is. Part of the reason why that's accurate is that the consultants are now moving into construction documents, and that's a point at which we don't want to change the design. A lot of moving pieces start getting put together at that point. So I think that all in all, people were pleased with the final design, and I think we're in good shape moving forward. The next step that will happen for Southview will be that design that we looked at will be shown to some of the downtown cities, Citizens Advisory Council, and some other groups, other stakeholders, so they're aware of what the final design is. It's not really intended for changes and input at that point. If there are things that have come up that are radical and surprising, I assume it would have to come back to committee. So I think Southview is in good shape. Then the other thing that we started to talk about was the 5th and Detroit project. Oliver Kiley from Smith Group JGR did a nice job of sort of framing it up, giving us an idea of, going back to square one with the street plan and those elements, giving us an orientation of what the scope of the project was and so forth. So at that point, we finished up the meeting, and then there were those of us who were able to tag along with them to go look at the site. So a few people were able to come along and talk through what they saw there, and it was I found very interesting. Lots of people with good input. Thanks to our folks who know Carytown well to give us some guidance in it. So I think that project is off to a nice start. One of the things that's critical right now that's going on is now they're going back and doing their survey work, which is very important in that it's where sometimes some early surprises come up. You get an accurate survey of conditions and so forth. So that will be part of that ongoing project, and that's something I would expect at our next meeting in May. We'll get that feedback on the survey. We'll get feedback on how the stakeholders meetings went at Southview, and we may get an opportunity to have some conversation looking forward to the next project. So, it's things keep moving nicely. I have to credit Amber and Susan. It's moving very nicely. I think we're being kept abreast of the important issues, and it's exciting. Any questions for me?
I will mention, I thought the walking tour was very instructional.
Good.
That was very useful.
Well, actually, one thing, let me elaborate on too, is one of the things I think is a particularly critical concern about that project is pedestrian traffic. Fifth, there are loads of cars coming up Fifth, and those crossing patterns, and as we stood there, one of the interesting things was that the community and high kids going here, everybody's crossing all over the place. And so there was a lot of really good conversation about that and awareness, and the traffic, having the traffic engineer there was great. You kind of point at things and talk through them. So I think that's one thing I would ask people too, if you have an opportunity to be down in that area, keep an eye out on, especially on the safety issues. I think we always, with all these projects, have to keep in mind that safety's got to be key to it. So as people see things and have ideas, please feel free to contact me, contact Amber with observations, ideas, etc., etc. It's a very unique project. We started as an example with the brick streets being a unique thing. One of the things we talked about was crossing over brick, barrier-free, bicycles, cracks, which sounds nerdy, but you don't want to splat yourself in the middle of the street. So, I think there's some interesting technical issues that will add up to have an impact not only on the function but also on the aesthetic of it in different ways. And there might, I'm not saying there will be, but there might have to be some compromises there, making sure that safety comes first. Our next Capital Improvement Committee meeting is Wednesday, May 18th at 11 a.m. Okay.
Next on the agenda, Partnership Economic Development Plan. Joe, anything else?
Yes, our last meeting we had Amy from City Parks and Rec give us a presentation on the Parks and Recreation Open Space Plan, which I think they do every 5 years. John, was it 5 years plan?
I think so. Pros
It's
is
a
5 years.
long-term thing.
Yeah.
5 or more. And this is something they do, and it goes, it's for the city, but it's also for state and federal something. It's a report they have to generate every certain amount of years. And in that, they update their main master plan. They did some public input. They had a survey that went out about priorities, so that's something she shared with us. They also did a report by the Parks Commission about the downtown parks and how is it functioning and the needs that was presented. That report noted downtown parks present very different challenges and that public-private partnerships can help downtown parks succeed. Private dollars enable a higher degree of programming, security, maintenance, and staffing. Basically, that was talking about the difference between a park that's out in a neighborhood versus a park that's in a downtown urban area, and that they have very different functions and needs and challenges. Then we discussed DDA's role to support and create affordable housing downtown, including providing grants, encouraging affordable housing with its grant policies. This discussion was mostly about whether or not the current level of incentives and things that are out there are working or not working. In the future, we may discuss changes to the partnerships and brownfield grant to strengthen language about affordable housing. Our next committee meeting is this very next Wednesday at 9 a.m., May 11th. This meeting will include our partner organizations. So we're alternating every meeting now. Partners, no partners. This one has partners. Last one did not.
Thank you. Any questions for Al?
So which ones have partners?
Last one.
Anyone?
No, this one. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Next, executive committee. The executive committee met at 11 a.m. today, and only business we conducted was reviewing the agenda of today's meeting. Okay.
Killed it.
Next executive committee is Wednesday, June 1st, 11 a.m. Does anyone have any new business for the board? Okay. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to address the board? Nancy, please.
Hello, I'm going to put on my Get Downtown hat first so everybody here knows the Commuter Challenge is happening this month, and I just want to give you a quick update on how the DDA is impacting that and doing great things. So yesterday in this room we held an intro to bike commuting class, and we had a University of Michigan urban planning student who actually is a League of American Bicyclists certified bicyclist. You have to take like a 10-hour training, I don't know. But anyway, we had over a dozen people show up for that. Really positive. Susan said some words to let people know the DDA's contribution to bicycling in the downtown. So that was a really great partnership. And during this month, there's also going to be a bike walk week, which is not this coming week, but the next week after that. And during that week, the DDA is going to be doing a bike light giveaway here for anybody who wants to come in and get a bike light set. And we also cascaded some interest in that, and U of M is doing a similar thing with their M Healthy program during that week as well. So it's kind of a nice coordinated effort to continue to improve cyclist safety in the downtown. And then during the Commuter Challenge, if you go on the website and you register and you see who's winning right now, it's completely dominated by downtown organizations. I will tell you that right now. So Expedia, Mathematica Policy Research, which is right around the corner from you, Arbor Research Collaborative for Health, they're all beating U of M organizations right now. So I think we're really representing very well U of M. I mean, the downtown is doing great. So I encourage you to look at it. We've had a phenomenal year for the Commuter Challenge despite gas prices and anything else. We have had more people participate this year than we ever have. And then just to put on my ride hat for a second, we did just unveil the probably largest service expansion in our history. I did present on that last time, and it went without any huge hitches. Riders felt really aware. If you've ridden the buses, you have seen us on the buses, making sure people know what's happening. And hopefully we will continue to see the benefits of that for the downtown in terms of more service to the downtown. But that went really well. I encourage everybody to try the new routes and see how they're working. There's new fancy buses out there as well, so it's a nice system to try, and we continue to see some positive progress in expanding the bus service. So just want to make sure you know.
And I'll say that
Same question.
Nancy did a great job. She came over to the Art Center and met with our team and helped everybody get a sense of, now we're all excited, we're all signed up, and everyone's going to do it. So thanks for coming back.
Sure.
Nancy, I think you should get actual hats and put them on, so we can use your, which hat you're wearing, because
Hey,
it was
maybe
confusing.
next time.
It was confusing to me. I'll work on that.
Nancy, since Rishi mentioned the park, was it pay by phone app?
Yes.
and
I thought you were going to talk about the hats more.
Yeah, no more hats. Apps. So I noticed that it's still not quite ready, the Track My Bus.
Right.
So can you tell us about what that's going to be? and kind of what it's
Sure.
gonna be?
There's a whole overhaul of the real-time system on the buses, and that includes everything from the signs on the bus to the people talking to the displays at the transit center, everything. And so that system is getting installed in buses a little bit every day, and the hope is that by mid-June, July, we'll have the whole real-time system up, and there'll be a lot more information and a lot better system than we have. But we had to overhaul the whole real-time system.
I'm
So
not
it's
familiar
coming.
with that. Is that on the site or is that an app?
It is on the site. It was a mobile. It was a mobile site.
Mobile site.
So it's a separate site, but this is going to be a mobile site. There'll be there's already information if you want to do a third-party app. That's on the site as well. If you go to a developer section, so it's all there.
I just had a question about the expanded, obviously, there's lots of projections about ridership and all of that. I assume that, like any new thing, a lot of these, you're expecting smaller ridership at first and building it over time.
Yeah, it depends on where we've added service. So obviously in places like Scioto Township where there's never been any service, the expectation is it's going to take a little while for people to know about it. So it depends, but yeah, I mean typically it takes a
And I
little while
know
for
the
people to
west
get to
side
the service.
is sort of a very different type of configuration, so it's not just, oh, my 9 is now the 30. It's like if I want to get somewhere, I do things in a somewhat different way. Well, when is the first time they'll be looking at those ridership numbers that have been added?
Probably, usually we get information like the 15th of every month after. So, May 1st was the start of the service. So, June 15th or so, we had the first round of ridership numbers, and those are usually published on the website as well.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be really interesting. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board? Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We got the discussion.